Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tropical Battery Company Limited earnings call. I'm Jermaine McDonald, CEO of L.E.A.R.N Invest, and I have the pleasure of hosting this earnings call today. I'm going to be joined by the CEO, Alexander Melville of Tropical Battery. So we're going to take you through the earnings for Q4 2022 and the entire financial year. Before we get started, though, I'm going to open with a word of prayer. So we thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the ability to produce wealth, to see life, to enjoy the experiences of family, friends, etc. We pray, Lord, that as we go through these proceedings, your presence will be here with us. We will be just enriched by these proceedings, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everyone, welcome again. So what I'm going to do is introduce the CEO of Tropical Battery, Alexander. Welcome.
Welcome, and thanks for having me. Morning.
Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to going through this with you. I know you've had a great year, and we'll get into the details of that very soon. So what I'll do is hand over to you to speak to your shareholders and tell us about what's coming up.
Cool. So I think just at a high level, we have had an excellent year financially. As you said, we'll get into that later. But our main mandates in terms of the just causes that we support is education and the environment, are kind of two areas that we focus on. So in this year, we were able to help a bunch of different educational projects, including like creative learning-based languages. A bunch of schools in our area. Those things were really important to us. And we also exported in the region of about 800,000 metric tons of scrap or spent batteries. So what that does is it also helps to clean up the environment, and taking lead and old plastic and kind of palletizing them, shipping them out in containers, where they can be, head to licensed recyclers and make sure that, we do our part as our kind of mandate for the environment and also education. So I think we had a lot of good milestones achieved last year in those two areas.
Gonna do, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this before. I'm going to take you through the flow of what we're going to be covering here today. So we're going to have a few words from Alexander, which we just did, and then we're going to go into the summary for the financials for Q4 and then for the entire year. Then we'll speak about the outlook for the company, what's to come. I know shareholders of Tropical will be interested to get some of their questions answered as well. So we'll take questions at the end. So that's the flow that we're gonna go through. So we're actually just gonna go straight into the financials. So let me bring up that slide right now. So Zando, over to you.
Yeah, so I think obviously the first one for the quarter, 666 million. That is our highest actual. I didn't mention that in the release, but that's our highest quarterly revenue ever achieved by the company. So we're really happy about that. It's 21% increase over the previous quarter for the same quarter last year. And of course, when you look at our net income after tax, 55 million, which is pretty solid, and 90% above the previous year. Earnings per share, again, 4 cents, again, almost double. And one that we're really proud of, and we've been kind of really focusing on it a lot, and it's one of our newer KPIs that we track, which is return on equity. And that was 22% for the quarter, up significantly from last year. So, last year we were averaging, kind of 10, 11, 12% return on equity, which to me, you can put your money in the bank and not really earn 10% right now, but in certain bonds and certain instruments, you can earn up to, I guess, 8, 9%. But so we want to be, way above putting your money in the bank. So our return on equity goals are, 20% or higher. And so it's nice that for that quarter, we hit 22%. And for the full year, right below there in yellow, we did 19.7%, almost 20% for the full year, which is really something we're very proud of in terms of return on equity. We have about $1 billion of equity. So of course, making almost 200 million for the year is, you know, that's where we get our 20% return on equity. And that I think is, you know, an important KPI that is often not as tracked. Sometimes people have a lot of equity on their balance sheet and people don't realize that, you know, the return on equity is definitely one of the most important KPIs that, you know, we track. And then for the full year, as I kind of went down there already, the revenue was at 2.6 billion, coming from 1.9 billion last year. So, you know, it's our first year over the $2 billion mark, and I think we're nicely above it. 30% growth rate, which is pretty good for a well-established company in this space. We don't think there was not 30% inflation. There was not 30% new car vehicles that came into the market. So we think we're taking some market share from, I guess, some of our competitors, and we hope to, not hope to, but we'll certainly strive to you know, achieve even greater growth rates next year. You know, again, above 25% is our target. Hopefully, if we get one of our acquisitions to close, you know, it'll be significantly higher growth than that. Yes, the profit for the year, 197 million, 123% up compared to 88 million last year. And of course, earnings at 15 cents, which is huge. We only earned like about 7 cents last year. And we're really, you know, happy about these full year numbers. Sometimes you can have a good quarter or a bad quarter here or there. But, you know, when you look at the full year, year over year, it is, you know, our board and I think is pretty happy with it. And also when you look at our stock performance, if you look at where we were a year ago, you know, it's reflected. We were trading below, well below $2, and now we're, you know, above $2. So that I think is also rewarding shareholders by doubling our profit and really seeing that return in our price per share. Yeah, those are pretty much the highlights. So, I mean, there's one of the highlights is, you know, we've also increased back our inventory a bit coming into this time of year because, you know, December, January are two very good months for us generally. There's rent-a-car season. There's a lot of things that happen at the end of the year. Tourism is finally, you know, really going back full force, especially in the cruise space. We had 2 ships in Mobay yesterday, 2 in Ocho yesterday before. This is something that the cruise industry was shut down for 2 years, and they use a lot of Juta buses and transportation, and those assets have been, you know, just being used in the hotel market and in a recovering hotel market. So we're really happy to see that cruise is back, and we think that regardless of, you know, maybe some pending, you know, a recession in the U.S. next year or Europe, what the news says. We think the re-immersion of cruise shipping, you know, this coming back to Jamaica, having been closed for almost 2.5 years, basically, you know, we think that's going to carry us nicely through 2023, even if there are some hiccups in other markets and larger markets. So that's why we also ramped up our inventory from about 600 million at the end of last year to about 800 million this year. So we think we're nicely set up coming into one of our little high seasons, December, January, as you'd see on our balance sheet numbers in September 30th.
Okay, great. Let us transition in terms of, you know, speaking about the outlook for the company. There are a couple of things that you'd have mentioned in our previous discussions, things I'm sure your shareholders would be interested in hearing about. News in terms of any acquisitions. You mentioned maybe looking towards maybe the end of the year. We are pretty much at the end of the year now. So commentary on that, along with any other plans that Tropical may have, at least for, I believe, maybe the 6 to 12 month time horizon. Okay, sure. Great, good question. So what's coming next? We announced a dividend, so we're paying 4 cents per share dividend. We earn, as I said, 15 cents. The year before, we only paid 2 cents
in dividends. So we're doubling our dividend payment, which is around 53 million, around a little bit over 50 million in dividends going to be paid out in January of next year. So that's something to look forward to. As a shareholder, I look forward to dividends, and we're happy and pleased that the 2 years of being listed. Our first year we paid 1 cent dividend, the second year 2 cents, and then now this year 4 cents per share dividends.
Doubling every year.
Yes, I hope we can continue to do that. Really hoping to shoot for 8 cents or 6 to 8 cents next year. And if everything goes well, we should be able to do that. So very excited about that. Happy about that. Not only do you get stock appreciation, but dividends. Cash is very helpful for investing for sure. So that's one thing to look forward to. The acquisitions, we have had. Added 1 or 2 more persons into our pipeline. And so since we last spoke, which I think is significant, you don't want to have just one horse in a race. You need to have, whatever 3, 4, in our space, we're looking at 4 to 5 companies that we're looking at them in parallel, all at the same time. Some are in different territories. Some are here in Jamaica, and we think that the timing of that is really hard to pin down. There's just due diligence and all these wonderful things that take longer than expected, and we also want to make sure that we choose the right company to merge into our structure, and we also want to make sure that not only is it the right company in terms of product line that has growth and just that combine their synergies. We also want to make sure that the management team and that we share similar core values, so that your company culture is not too far out of whack. So there's a lot of details in that process, and I think the most important thing that we did do is to make sure that our core business is solid, which is it's just highlighted in those numbers that we just showed. Our core business is solid, so that when you acquire someone, your core thing is running very smoothly. Our audited accounts came out in like 70 days or 75 days from year-end, which is pretty impressive from an automotive type company. We're not in banking and finance, which sometimes it's more digital. So I think it's easier, or maybe not, but that's my impression. And so we're excited that the core business is doing well. We have 4 or 5 partnership merger type discussions happening, and it's I can't say them, and I can't say the time. I wish they would be completed, but as soon as they are, hopefully within the next 6 to 12 months, they will, 1 or 2 of them will complete. And sure. It's longer than I'd hoped, but I want to make sure that we get it right, and our holding team wants to make sure that we get it right. So that
is definitely the best approach. Yes, you want to be sure that everything is definitely handled well. In terms of expansion for Tropical's core business, locations, anything of that nature?
Yes, so we had we opened at Ferry, which is our latest retail store, and we have been looking for others. One more in Kingston, and we also thought of another one. We're in Montego Bay, but we think there's probably space for maybe 2 retail stores there. So we've been looking for land there. The other one we're in Kingston, which is our number 1 store, Grove Road. As you know, we bought the property, or the sister company brought our property right next door to it, and we finalized the architectural drawings now. We're actually just getting the financing sorted so that we can expand that retail store there, because one of our biggest problems there is in the busy time, we don't have enough parking, and it's an older type store, 30 years old or more. That store has been there, and so we really need to refresh it, and it's trying to figure out a way to build out, expand it, and at the same time keep open. So we don't want to close the store, but we want to almost like knock it flat and start again. So we're starting a 2-phased approach, but that has presented a few little challenges, but I think once that's complete too, we're going to see some good, better returns from that retail store, because sometimes it's just so busy. People, drive by and they go somewhere else because there's just not enough parking, and so we're solving that problem, and also in solving that problem, we're adding more bays to do other things and larger showrooms so that we can display more products and actually churn more products in, especially our new products like solar panels, inverter batteries, all of these new products that we've been bringing in that have also helped our growth. We want to have more display space for them, because right now our retail stores are mainly just set up as like a battery and some accessories, as you see behind me, kind of thing, and tires, so we need to more display space for our new product lines. So
okay, so in terms of you, so you mentioned needing financing to hopefully complete that project that you just alluded to. I know there was a bond that was out. Can you tell us the state of that? Has it been closed? How are you going to be using those funds, moving forward?
Yes. So there were some delays in that, and the reason is we didn't realize that you have to have consent, and from the other bondholders to get your new bond, approved with the JSE, and so that took a little longer than we had thought, and we got consent, which is great. And so now our bond is now in the market. I believe, I actually hope tomorrow we should get the first tranche of it, and then the second half in January. So that is moving along nicely, and those funds will allow us to help complete either some of these acquisitions and also growth and build out, the retail store and stuff like that.
Great. Happy to hear that. So anything else that shareholders can look forward to in terms of, the company, its structure, just anything really for them to look forward to within the next 6 to 12 months before we move to the question and answers?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing for me to look forward to is more of the same. That if we can continue our core growth of our battery business, our energy storage business, and at the same time transition to our pivot to more renewable energy, tracking, looking at EV batteries, looking at all types of other energy storage applications than just a traditional legacy business. We want to continue that change, and it is working. It is working, as you can see in our numbers, and we want more of that same. Is, to me, what is the biggest thing to look forward to make sure that core business is well, and that we're transitioning into an industry that is exploding. The energy storage business, because solar plus batteries now is more compelling economically than JPS, and so we are seeing huge demand in the pickup of our lithium iron phosphate batteries, and then related products around there. We also got a dealership for an inverter. We're now I'm not going to say the name, but we have our own line of inverters that we sell along with the solar panels and the systems, and we have lots of the installers will come and buy panels from us now, also inverters, and of course the lithium iron phosphate batteries that are great for the backup when it's nighttime.
Okay, so, and that would be available at all stores currently?
Yes, our main the panels are only available at the Ferry store, and we can deliver from our warehouse to anywhere. And again, we're trying to build up more display space, and it's something where someone will buy and then we'll deliver to them.
Okay, great, awesome. Thank you so much for that. So what we'll do now, I believe we've gone through, given an overview of Q4 and the overall 2022. You've spoken about the plans for the company for the next 6 to 12 months. So at this point, we'll take questions from our audience. So we do have some questions that were submitted in advance. So we'll go through some of those first, and then we'll take ones from persons who are here with us live. So let me just bring those up right now. So the very first question would have been an update on the bond. We would have addressed that already. Next question would be, has the relationship between Diverse and Portland Private Equity played a part in your current acquisition targeting, and will that relationship continue to factor into your future expansion plans?
Yeah, good question. So Diverse, yes, our parent company, yes, Portland is a shareholder, so they're also a shareholder in Tropical Battery. We see that continuing for the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years. I think, Portland as a private equity firm, they look to exit, after 7 years, I think was their mandate, somewhere between like 7 and 10 years. And so they invested in us in 2015, 2017. I don't remember the exact date right now, but and so they start to move into exit mode. But I also think they're raising like a third fund, and maybe there's opportunities in that third fund for different targets or strategies or mergers or investments that we could take advantage of from that Portland third fund for Tropical Battery. So I think they have played a part because they sit on the board of Tropical Battery, Ricardo Hutchinson, and Robert Almeida, who sits on the parent board. They are great resources to bounce ideas off of. I mean, they're invested in 12, 13 companies in Jamaica and around Latin America and the kind of Caribbean. And so their business experience with transactions, with investments and mergers and that know-how has been very helpful to us even in talks with our 4 or 5 persons that we are in talks with, having them as on the board, being able to use their experience to help us go through these transactions, make sure that we do better due diligence and not just on our own. So they have obviously deeper, many more years of experience doing transactions like with mergers and stuff like that. So they have played a part, and yes, I think they'll continue to play a part for the next couple of years, and even after that. Yes. We have such good relationships with Rob and Ricardo and a lot of the team at Portland, and they want to see our continued growth and success because it also benefits them. And even if I believe they exit and sell to some pension fund or something like that, I believe that they will always, if they think they have an opportunity that fits the Tropical Battery's growth path and has similar core values, they would share that opportunity with us and say, hey, look at this, have you thought about this? And so that's very important in growth. You can't just grow organically all the time. And so I think you look at Google that bought YouTube, and that's turned out really well for them, and huge for them. And so I think there is, even though we have a great brand and we're going to continue to grow organically, acquisition is going to be a huge part of our strategy. And across the Caribbean and in Jamaica over the next 10 years. Remember, I think of business, we're a 70-year-old company. We think of business it's another 70 years. Business just continues on. And how do we become Grace Kennedy, in the automotive energy storage space in terms of how they are in food and stuff like that. And I think Portland will continue to help, us with that, their experience, leveraging their experience to help us do better mergers and partnerships.
Okay, great insight there. I definitely agree. Partnerships are going to be extremely important, and thank you for sharing that. Next question here is, can we, or this person is asking, I guess on behalf of everyone, can we expect to see a rights issue during 2023, given the recent total debt incurred to the tune of almost $500 million?
I don't think it's necessary for us right now. We're not having any liquidity issues. As you see on our balance sheet, we had over 170 million at the end of September in cash. And our current assets are very liquid in terms of receivables, all those things. We have no issues there. So if you look at our current ratio as well, we have something like $1 billion. Our current assets are $1 billion over our current liabilities, which is huge. It's more than 2 to 1. And so I think that is we'd only do a rights issue if we needed, cash for something or liquidity, and I don't see that as necessary now.
Yeah, it's about using it if you need it. Based on how things are now, you don't think you'll have to. So I guess it may come down to, you mentioned 4 or 5 potential acquisitions in the pipeline. I guess if all of them work out, then things may change in terms of that dynamic, in terms of your need for cash.
Our structure of how we would do that is we would issue shares. So the discussions we're having is around line and saying, okay, we have 1.3 billion shares currently in listed, or currently in total for the company. And say we found a target, we wanted to buy them for 400 million or $1 billion. At $1 billion, we'd say to them, okay, we can issue, say the stock price is $2 for easy math. We can issue 500 million shares. And so that's a way to acquire companies without cash. And I think that strategy is what we are pursuing mostly. So that way there's less need for cash, and we would issue shares. It means that there'll be some dilution, but and you don't need to do a rights issue, and rights issue also does dilution. But so by issuing the shares and using that to acquire the earnings, you end up net ahead, because if you're buying if you're buying a business that's doing 200 million in profit, and you merge that in, your earnings and your stock price should, if we did 200 million this year, and all of a sudden we buy a company that's doing another 200 million, it should reflect, generally, would reflect in our stock price going from $2 to $4. And so that is creating a lot of value. So even though there's dilution, which is someone owning 2%, all of a sudden now they own 1.5%, but their share price goes from $2 to $4 because the things we're acquiring are profitable, audited businesses. We're not acquiring businesses that are not profitable. We're acquiring, and that is in itself also presents certain challenges, why there's delays and audits needed to be done, and those things that take time to make sure that you're buying high quality earnings that are very likely to continue in the future, given the business model. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess when we get to that point, you'll share more details as to how that acquisition may take place, or how the terms have been finalized, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. As a shareholder, part owner, I'm concerned about the company taking on debt. How does Tropical intend to repay this bond debt?
So usually what we do, there's a certain amount of debt to equity that most businesses, from Grace Kennedy to NCB to all companies, not all, but 90% of them will take. What we do is we roll the bond. And so the repayment comes from issuing another bond. And so our leverage ratio, we feel, is pretty good. When you look at our debt to equity, we're below, our debt is below our equity. So our plans are to just roll that bond. And many times, once you're current with all your bond payments, so at the end of a 3-year bond, you pay your interest every quarter, which we do, and we're current with all of our facilities. The same investors, or even new investors, say you're going to pay out this 300 million bond, you just raise the same 300 million a month before, and you use that to pay it out, and then you extend the time for another 3 years or 5 years. Because our ratios are great. If our debt to equity ratios were like, we had 500 million in debt and we only had 100 million or 200 million in equity, that's not so great, but we have $1 billion in equity on our balance sheet and 500 million or whatever in debt. Our debt to equity ratios are very conservative. Banks lever up 10 times. If their equity is $1 billion, they'll take 10 billion of debt. And certain companies, even when you're taking a loan, they will allow you 2 or 3 times equity. So technically, we could borrow $2 or $3 billion with $1 billion of equity. So our debt levels are very low compared to our balance sheet, our equity on our balance sheet. And so that's and that's how we would, and for that's how we would repay the bond, by just rolling it and doing another bond. And because you want to keep, it's efficient to keep a certain level of debt on your balance sheet. You shouldn't have zero debt. You want to use other people's money So you put some debt, and we may say we want to keep our levels below equity. We'd never want to lever up above equity, even though some companies go 2 or 3 times equity. We want to be, our internal matrix are to be below equity, and we certainly are below our equity in terms of debt to equity ratio. So we think that's very conservative. And I think if you use Investopedia and look it up, our ratios are very, very, very good in terms of debt to equity. Yeah.
Understood. I think that's clear. So let us move on here. The next question is: a company looking to enter the Barbados market for battery recycling, solar, or EV charging servicing?
Not currently. I mean, we did have a conversation with a company down there, but they were not willing to sell or merge or whatever. There is a Tropical Battery in Barbados that was set up like 50 years ago by Tropical Battery here in Jamaica, but they were, they went off on their own, but they still use the name Tropical Battery. And so we look to try and acquire them or, get them going in with us. But they are owned, I think it's by the Goddard Group in Barbados, and they're owned by a very large group, and they weren't interested in selling it or merging. So it didn't make sense. So nothing else other than that we'd looked at right now. But one day, if they want to sell, we are here and available.
Ready to go.
Call us again if you see this.
Excellent. Next question. The top 10 shareholder list was not published to the JSE along with the audited results. Can that be made available?
Yes, of course. As I know, because we're on the 60-day cycle, we, which is, you have 6 days after your fiscal year end to do that. We put that out in our annual report, which I believe is 120 days. You have 120 days to do your annual report, and it will be published in our annual report. And if for some reason I'm or not correcting that, we'll get it done tomorrow. But as far as I know, we have 120 days to do our annual report, and in your annual report shows the top 10 shareholders. So it wasn't, my understanding was if you're on the 90-day cycle, then you had to publish your regularly quarterly report, which has your top 10 shareholders. But because we're on the 60-day year and only once a year, every 3 quarters we do that right away. But on the 4th quarter, because we're on a 60-day cycle, you just publish your audited accounts, and then and then at 120 days you do your annual report, which covers everything.
Okay, and based on where we are now, that should be out maybe within the next 2 months.
January, yeah, within January.
Okay, great.
Before the end of January, yeah.
Okay. All right. Elaine is asking, how will Tropical continue to manage its prices in a higher inflation environment to stay competitive?
So one of the things we do, good question. We buy in bulk, and we try and buy in volume so that we can lock in certain pricing. As I said, our inventory is at a good level, so we try our best to lock in pricing by buying in volume to manage that risk of inflation. And so the other good thing is that lead is actually decreasing some on the foreign open market. So lead is a commodity. It's probably 50% component in terms of the cost of a battery. And so when that commodity price is going down, that gives us some flexibility, even if the dollar is sliding or there's other inflationary shipping. Obviously, shipping was up, but now it's gradually starting to come down. So we're seeing some easing on that inflationary side on some of the actual goods and services within our specific business. So that's that, along with volume, as we are the largest purchaser of batteries in the country. We purchase, probably 65% of all the batteries sold. So our volume pricing is better than most, or if not all, of our competitors that we can see. For the same apples to apples. I see people out there saying, okay, well, we're going to sell you this battery, but it's not the same quality or the same number of plates, or the plates are thinner or not, or there's difference. And so, but if you compare apples to apples, we get some of the best pricing than anywhere in the world for the quality that we buy.
Great. It's always important to compare apples to apples. I say that to our community members all the time. So thank you for that. Elaine is also asking any plans to partner with the government of Jamaica on EV technology?
Yeah, great question. So we have been working with them somewhat. The head of our tropical renewable division, Oliver Hill, has been working with IDB and some of Jamaican government folks on it. We've also been working with Evergo with their charging stations and stuff like that. We're also setting up an EV association, which I don't remember if the government's member, but some of the automotive guys are joining as well, and we are on that association. I'm one of the founding members of the EV Association of Jamaica, and so that we think, helps communication, alignment, and getting things done. In terms of the government, we would be helping them dispose of the batteries, because you need an end-of-life solution. Yes. And they're buying now electric buses and fire trucks and all kinds of things that they'll be buying. And so they have to have a way to environmentally friendly get rid of those batteries after their 7-year, 10-year, 8-year use. And we are in the licensing process with the government to be able to handle those for all of the car dealers in Jamaica. And then collect them, store them, and then ship them to a licensed recycler who does it in an environmentally friendly way. You can't set up a plant there; it's just too small. But which we explored. But we think we'll be the go-to person to then when you want to get rid of the battery, because it takes an investment. Not everybody's going to want to have to, set up and get licensed just to get rid of their EV battery. It's just not make sense, So if we're the one that's already there, then all the car dealers have already started to come to us and write to their parent company and say, hey, yes, in Jamaica there is a licensed exporter and recycler of these batteries, because then they won't even ship the cars here unless there's one here in Jamaica. So
yes. So that would be an exclusive partnership, or you're saying based on the process, not many are likely to be in the space?
Yes, because of the process, many are not likely to be in the space. It won't be exclusive. I mean, there can be other persons that set it up. But I don't. It's a lot of going through to the licensing process and training and all of that. So someone would really, and I don't think it's going to be a massively profitable area for us. But what it does is it deepens the connection with there are people that buy new batteries from us, and that they really appreciate. That makes them more loyal. It makes, what I mean, it helps the business relationship.
Okay, so it's a strategic move and not necessarily a one for generating profit. It's more having that place in the mind of the consumer. Okay.
Yeah, and it earns you it earns you US dollars, one, because you export. Two, we started our export business, as I mentioned, just exported 800,000 tons of metric tons of lead acid batteries last year. We started that with an environmental thing in our heart mainly, you know what I mean? But today it is profitable. So we make money on actually driving. We bought a truck, drive around Jamaica, collecting. We purchase scrap. We have to buy the old batteries from the guys who collect them in the dump. The small guy who collects up 10 batteries, we pay him $500 a battery, $1,000, whatever the price, depending on the size of the battery. And then those guys, we put them in a truck. We have to go through a process to then export them, which is very tedious because it's considered hazardous. It's hazardous waste. It has acid, lead, and if you don't, package it properly on pallets and shrink wrap it and pack them, no country wants to take hazardous waste. So to get a shipping license to export that is difficult. We have to go through that process every year too. But again, it started with the environment in mind, but it also is profitable. And so we feel this will be similar to that. It's more to deepen the relationship, and it's also environmentally friendly. But I'm sure we're going to make money on it as well. It may not be as much as you make on selling a new battery, but it should be profitable. And I think, yeah.
Great, great. Thank you. Just a comment here from Philip before we transition to the next question. Philip is saying it's fantastic to see the principles of an older and more traditionally owned Jamaican company engaging with retail investors. It will augur well for the diverse group and for their future IPOs and rights issues.
Great, thanks for that.
Yes, next question here from Elaine. Tropical has a strong rooted connection with older customers. What is your team doing at this moment to build the brand amongst your younger clients?
Yeah, great question. Some of what we're doing right now is what we think will help with younger customers.
That's what I was thinking.
So we do engage a lot on social media now, in terms of, if you look at a couple of things, Instagram, you know, we're on those platforms. One of the biggest, I think, most meaningful ones that we do, and we did this from very early on, is when you look at Google Maps, because a lot of people, young people, have iPhones and they Google everything and they just type in battery, and then you will see the Tropical battery nearest you pop up, and you will see that all of these are rated, and you will see that if you can Google it right now, all of our retail stores have, you know, the one in Ocher's has 4.5-star rating out of 5, you know, and so that engagement, because then they write reviews. I'm not writing reviews. They're, you know, it's amazing to see now every week we're getting in, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 reviews each week. Before it was like we used to get 1 review a month, you know, 5 years ago when we set this up we had 5 reviews for the year. Now we have hundreds and thousands of reviews of Tropical battery branches by generally younger Jamaicans, because they're the ones who use the technology more. It's proven, you know, versus the older, again, most loyal traditional Tropical battery customer. But the younger ones are engaging and they're giving us their feedback, and then I say, okay, well, I didn't like this. At this branch, I had bad customer service, and we get some 1-star ones, and so we then engage with the person and say, hold on, what happened that day? You know, okay, you know, sometimes it's spot on. 90% of them are spot on. Sometimes it's one person trying to make mischief about it, but we take that feedback from the younger consumer, and then we discuss it in management meetings, and we say, hold on, you know, is this price too sensitive here? Is this what, you know? And then we then listen to that feedback and communicate, engage with the customer again, which is a younger customer, which I think builds that loyalty. So engaging them on social media, engaging them through things like Google Maps, and responding to their good and bad feedback.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. As you said, you know, activities like being here on this earnings call for your retail investors is a big step in that direction as well. So thank you so much again for partnering with us to do this. So Troyan is saying, can we look forward to an acquisition in the first quarter since MOUs were already signed?
Good question. I wish I could say, but the due diligence process of getting audited accounts with some of these partners, I don't know what's your extent of your business experience, but getting your audits done in 60 days or 90 days is very difficult. And so some of the persons, you know, need to get their financial stuff ready. And although we're trying to really, onus is on them. You know, I can't force them to, I can say we want to partner and acquire and grow quicker together, but they have to do certain things on their side that are then dependent on their audit firm. And every audit firm in Jamaica is saying, we can't do your audit because we don't have any staff. And every time they have they hire teams, this is a problem in Jamaica. The low unemployment, audit firms are losing their staff to Canada. They have nobody to audit. It's because in Canada they're paying them double what they pay here, you know, and so it's an attractive thing where you see the advertisements online all the while. Canada, come to Canada, we'll give you a visa and a passport and come and work here, because global unemployment is attracting a lot of our you know, university educated persons out of the country, and that is slowing up our audit process. It happened even with us, and it's happening with a lot of other companies I know in Jamaica, and worse, the ones that are not publicly traded, they get, you know, a little bit pushed further down the line, and so I hope I'm not sure. So
Yeah, understood. There are things that are outside of your control, so
yes,
you do the best you can. Yep.
yeah.
All right. So they did I think Lucian Morris, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Did Tropical do a credit rating? If yes, what it is? If not, why not?
Good question. Well, we haven't done one yet because we just haven't had to. But we are going to in the new year. Our plan is to go with Carry Chris and get ourselves rated. I mean, I hear it can lower your interest cost. So that in itself, obviously, there's a cost to being rated. They charge you to go and get rated. So once the cost outweighs it, but the fact is, you know, our borrowing costs were pretty low before because we have a strong balance sheet and because we have a well-established brand name and we're profitable and those kind of things. Sometimes you don't have to get rated, but I do believe we should. It's a good thing. It's just one more thing that says, okay, yes, you guys are a solid company. You can look at your rating, especially for persons, international investors or outside of the Jamaica. So we are going to do it, and that's on our list for 2023 things to do is to get rated. But we haven't. I don't think it has held us back any at all yet. You know what I mean? So far, but we're going to get it done next year.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. Thank you for your answer, Alexander. So Philip is saying that he noticed your sister company, Choca, has entered the Dominican Republic market recently. Is that where Tropical is looking towards expanding or acquiring? And how's your Spanish?
Luckily, my younger brother, Daniel, who is the deputy managing director, is fluent in Spanish. And yes, we are looking at opportunities in the Dominican Republic. Our sister company is there, has been there for over 5 years. So we're starting to understand the lay of the land. It is obviously different laws and stuff like that, but there's companies like JMMB who have been there for 10, 15 years, and we're, having discussions with them on making sure that we, understand everything as well, and using obviously our own experience. So it's a huge market. It is 3 times the size of Jamaica. It's like 12 million people, or like 11 million people, and and of course they have Haiti right beside them. There is, and there's good, a lot of cars down there, a lot of renewable energy. As I said, the battery market down there is about 1 million batteries a year. The Jamaican market is probably around 300,000 batteries a year.
Wow.
So I think it's actually about 1.2 million. I think I have about 1.2 million batteries per year down there. And we have some good relationships down there with the number one supplier as well of batteries down there. It was Comito. And they're similar to us in a way that they probably control, 50% market share down there, 40% market share. A little lower than that, but of course they're a huge player because they're doing 600,000 batteries a year. You know what I mean? Which is huge. So we're in talks with them, figuring out ways to do different opportunities. So we are looking at Dominican Republic.
And L.E.A.R.N Invest will be ready to do the earnings call in Spanish next year, or translate.
Yes, I would get my brother on to do that one.
Okay, awesome. Troyan is asking, when can we see some serious marketing and economic activity from Tropical Finance Limited and Tropical Energy, who are the CEOs of these companies?
Good question. We're in the process of just fine-tuning all of the structures and all of the products. And once that is done, we will then set up the proper websites, because we want to have them like a little bit separate, and so that there's more focus on them. I would say by the second quarter, by the middle of next year, in terms of calendar, sometime after March, April, you should start to see some real traction and marketing of those companies. Yeah.
Okay, great. Looking forward to that when the time comes. We have just a few more questions, so we're going to be wrapping up shortly. Odin is asking any plans or progress on, and I think that's, well, on
ESOP,
an ESOP. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so we do, most of our employees are shareholders, and we encourage, everybody to buy, and majority of them bought in the IPO, which is great. And we're also, we don't have an ESOP plan in place, no, so the answer is no, but most of our employees are shareholders, and we encourage and also help streamline them to acquire shares. And sometimes we're thinking about different ways to incentivize, or some of our incentives to be paid in shares. So, but we haven't issued any yet. Yeah, so that's kind of, but we are thinking about, we think it's a good thing to have employees owning shares. So the good thing is most of ours do already, but we're also trying to figure out better ways. One could be an ESOP way, one could be incentives, different ways to do that, to increase even that the amount of employees that own shares.
Yes, great. And it's something we spoke about at our last interview, that very same intent and plan to have your employees continuing to grow in terms of that shareholder base. Okay, I believe this is our final question. Abigail is asking, do you have a customer relationship management system to manage your customer engagement and sales processes? If not, are you interested in one?
Yes, we do have a CRM, and it's built into kind of our accounting software. It's just like a different module in there. And we also have a point of sale module for our retail stores as well. So yeah, I think we're covered there. But
yep. All right, great. Thank you so much. Well, one question sneaked under the door here. Joshua is asking, has the inventory management system been a success in terms of reducing lead times between distribution and getting into the retail stores?
Yes, that is huge. That is one of our biggest things we're happy about in terms of our logistics and warehouse management. Everything is barcoded. Everything is, when we do our inventory count at the end of the month, or it's just, it runs so much smoother. You know where everything is. There's less mistakes. There's less counting errors. That system has worked very well for us, and we're happy we spent the money to put it in, and it's made us more efficient. And we have, I think our delivery times too are quicker. We track the average number of days, because remember, about 70% or 65% of our sales are through the 1,000 distributors around the island, small gas stations, auto parts stores. So we track, they'll put in an order with a salesperson. We try and get it to them within 24 hours, like the next day. So they'll order one day and then we push it out to deliver. But sometimes it's more because you can't go to Montego Bay sometimes every day, or Westmoreland, or there's certain places that we can only get to once a week. Other places twice. But so we'll try and that helps. The inventory system helps us plan the loading, the delivery, the shipping, so that we choose the right routes in a more efficient way to get the products quicker to those dealers all across the island.
Okay, great. Yes, the right system can definitely make all of that easier. It's something that's extremely important.
We're a big believer in technology and using technology to make our business more efficient, so that all of us human beings can do more thinking, strategic jobs and stuff like that, and then use the technology to make everything else run smoother. And if you do that well enough, then it allows you, or your first mover status in your market, it allows you to then have better pricing, allows you to be more profitable, because then you're more efficient. You're using, these things pay for themselves once they're once you choose them right and implement them correctly. Yeah.
Yes, agreed, 100%. All right, Cert plus Master is asking, are there any plans for Guyana, which is the fastest growing economy currently?
We'd love to look at it, but I just don't have the resources right now to look at it. As I said, we're in talks with 4 or 5 different opportunities, and Guyana is not on it yet. But we know it's fast growing. We know that their GDP is going to be massive with the oil and all these wonderful things. It's on our radar, but not for 2023. it'd be probably more like 2024. We'd have to look at it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think I'd like for us to just say thank you. I think unfortunately, if we miss any other question, I believe we can simply just maybe cover those on our next conversation. So I definitely want to thank everyone for being here. I'm going to allow you, Alexander, to say your final thoughts or comments, and then we'll close out this session. So, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Again, always a pleasure to talk with you. I told you, I think your company name and values and approach to investing is very in line with ours and mine. So just really happy to be here and happy to share updates on what was a great quarter for us and also a great year. And we look forward to a lot of great things coming in 2023. So appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you for partnering with us to deliver what we believe is great value to investors. Over 100 persons joined us on this call just now. So that's I think, a great win. So what we will do is we'll certainly take all the questions that come in after we end this live, and we'll forward them to you. But I'm sure we'll be speaking every quarter going forward, so we'll certainly be able to address those that we might.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to look at the questions too if you send them, for sure. I mean, I can't probably get back to them all of them today, but give me a few days over the Christmas, and hopefully by early January I'll get all those questions answered.
Yes, exactly. So we'll have a regular cadence with which to answer all the questions that come in. So yes. Thank you so much, Alexander. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I wish everyone a happy holiday, and please do get some rest and spend time with your family and loved ones. And we'll be seeing you next year for the Q1 earnings call for Tropical Battery.
Great. Thank you. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.